Now if you come on down to Highbury, you can see Thierry Henry. He is the best player you will ever see. Thierry Henry. Now if you come on down to Highbury.
Hello and welcome back to From Dial Square to Where for the first time in absolutely ages. Just been talking off air. I think the last time we podcasted was after the Crystal Palace game, which seems a lifetime away now, but it's great to be back. I'm really, really chuffed to have such a great panel with me today as well to discuss what's been happening, the Arsenal and all things around it. I've got Ray back with us this week. How are you, Ray? Great to have you.
Yeah, very well, thank you, and thank you again for having me. What a weekend, eh? I literally can't wait to discuss it. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I've probably read every article out there and listened to every podcast about it already, but I'm still not sick of. I'm not sick of
it. No,
no. How can you be? And I can't wait to get started and get discussing it all. And Kunjan, great to have you back, mate. Great to see you.
Good to see you too, buddy. I know you asked for Bono, but we got the poor man's version. So you have to deal with that.
No, it's brilliant. Fantastic. I can't wait to see you. And I was going to say hello to Ryan, but he's just dropped off again. I'm sure he'll be back in a second.
You had a poor man's Bono, now you have the poor man's David Blaine, who disappeared in a second. And he's back.
He's back, as if by magic, like Mr. Ben. If you know, you know. Ryan, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yourself? And yeah, thanks for having me on as well. And looking forward to having another discussion about the North London derby and them got down the road being shit.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, it's a joy to be back. I haven't had a chance to speak about so many games so far. I mean, this season, we sit literally top of the table. That you never know it when you watch any kind of media about the Premier League at the moment. We never hardly get discussed, but who cares? Because we're still looking down on the likes of Manchester City, despite the fact they score 8 goals a game and they've got a bloke that just bangs in hat-tricks game after game after game. We're still ahead of them. Would you believe it? So, yeah, let's get started, really. And, I mean, we've got to talk about the North London derby. My quick thoughts, really, because I was in the car driving down back home after a weekend away. I was just talking with Ray about off air. And the team news came up. And my girlfriend, she read out the team for me because I was driving. And I was really quite pleasantly surprised that because I didn't know what to expect, really, but to have our full team available on the pitch was really, really pleasing to me and gave me a massive boost in the lead up to the game. I mean, let's talk about that for just a quick second, Ray. I mean, what were your thoughts? Were you expecting that full team to be announced, including Partey, Ødegaard, Zinchenko, etc.? It was really pleasing to me.
Yeah, not really, to be honest, Andrew. It was a real pleasant surprise. I think Thomas Partey got injured, didn't he, just before, or just during international duty before the first game, supposedly, and had to come back. And as soon as that happened, I was not writing this game off, but I was thinking it was going to be a real challenge. So to see him back in the side, and obviously the performance he had was great. Also, we've I think it's only, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Smith Rowe and El Neni out of our first team that were injured, and then pretty much everyone else was fully fit, right? So it was brilliant, and we were able to keep a pretty settled size out once again, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little not surprised, but I mean, after the fact that Kieran Tierney has been doing so well lately, whilst Zinchenko had his little knock and was coming back, that he started with Zinchenko at left back. I mean, again, what were your thoughts really when the team news came out?
So I was actually hoping that if we didn't have Thomas Partey, I'd love to have seen Zinchenko play the holding midfielder's role. Because again, it would have been a different dynamic to see him move up and Tierney on the left. I think it would give us a very solid foundation, having that structure. But when I saw Thomas Partey, I obviously knew. I think the way things are looking, Tierney has become our backup left back, and let's not complain. That's fantastic. We were complaining last season when we had Nuno Tavares as our backup. Now we have like a phenomenal. I wouldn't go as far as to say world class, but he's quite up there, Kieran Tierney, and I like the fellow. In fact, I was even thinking about this the other day. I'm like, if Tavares was to come back with Tierney's range, would we be considering him as a left centre back? Because I think Zinchenko has made the left back his role. Tavares would play backup, and it's a totally different game from what Tierney brings on or what Zinchenko brings on. Would that mean that Kieran Tierney would be left centre back with Gabriel? Because we may get to this hopefully later on, but Gabriel is looking like the chink in the armor right now. I love the guy. I think he has a very strong aura of positivity, and he's a robust defender, but he also has those mistakes that he has to get out of his system. But it was a good starting 11. I think it's the same starting 11 we had against Crystal Palace. So I think it did give us that camaraderie between the 11. It did have that flow that we had going on from the first game of the season. It was a good starting. I think every Arsenal fan was quite confident going to this North London derby. It wasn't as easy as it looked, but it was a good starting 11, and I was happy seeing Zinchenko there. And Thomas Partey, I wasn't expecting him to start, but thank God he did. I think we ran the midfield, and our midfielders were A1, not a single flaw in their performance.
Yeah, no, exactly. And just same question to you, Ryan. I mean, were there any surprises for you there when the lineup was announced, and how are you feeling when it came out? What was your actual feeling when that lineup came out? How were you feeling then about confidence-wise?
Yes, my main surprise was Partey, because as I say before, he did apparently pick up an injury, so I was concerned about this game. Like, would he have any say in the game, sort of thing? Would he be in the squad at all? Because we were led to believe he picked up a knock against Brazil, I think it was, or in training before that game, and basically got flown back. Thankfully, that went. Clearly, we're being shithousey at its finest in terms of we're doing what the other clubs usually do and go, can't play, got an injury, get him back over here, please. And they're literally spending more time here, which is a good thing. What we're going to have in the World Cup as well, by the looks of it. And he didn't look like he had an injury either. He just
far from it.
We've come accustomed to the last 12 months or so. Like, he's settled in now. He knows the league. He knows what he's got to do. He knows his role. Aside from that, I wasn't surprised if Zinchenko started, because with Tierney, we have to remember he did have an injury back in the last season. They did try bringing back in pre-season. He only lasted half an hour. He's had an injury since. So I think now with someone like Zinchenko in the squad, it's more of a not if you've got competition for your place now, Tierney, but we don't have to rush you back now and cause any more unnecessary injuries or anything like that. We're going to ease you back in, but at the same time, it's not guaranteed when you're fully fit that you've got a position, you've got a starting 11 position, you've got to fight for your place now. And it's the same for Ben White, Tomiyasu, that side of things. We discussed this last night in my podcast. For me, one of the stand-up players for me on Saturday, was Martinelli. He literally just, every time he got that ball, he just ran. He played. I love him because he plays with no fear. He gets the ball and he runs with it, and he don't care who you are as a defender. He would terrify you.
Can you imagine playing against him? Oh,
he was skinning up a lot of their players, wasn't he, on that side? We'll go into it a bit later, but hence why Emerson Royale had to make that foul, because I think he was getting roasted by him time and time again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was the second half when he took the ball from one end of the pitch to the other, like that dribble all the way down the left-hand side around the play.
Yeah.
What a player! I mean, come on, yeah. Let's go on. Let's go on to that. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say something else he's worked on it. We discussed it last season. Throughout the season, was his body strength. He's actually since last season he's improved that. Whereas when I say that, it's like when a defender goes up against him, he's not afraid to not just fight for the ball, but he's there. He's going to hold it. He's going to hold it, and you have to literally break his leg basically to get the ball off him. Yeah. And I like seeing the little things like there's a chink in your armor, you improve it.
Absolutely. I mean, we're still everyone goes on. We're still a young team, but we do not play like a young team anymore. I mean, we play like a mature, well-rounded team that's been together for a long time, and that's what's so exciting about the whole thing. I mean, let's just start sort of having a quick chat about the game then, Ray. Yourself, we started off like a train, didn't we? I mean, right from the first whistle, really, we were just at them and on their throats straight away. It was just a joy, wasn't it? And that calmed the nerves very early doors as well with the way that we started the game, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. I don't know whether it's either their tactics or how we sort of pinned them back. Maybe it was a combination of both. But it seemed like we really sort of kept them in their own sort of half and box, really, didn't it? And whenever they were able to sort of get the ball and try and break, we were able to sort of nick it back. And when they tried to press us, we were just able to play through it. Again, something Thomas Partey is so good at. And yeah, like you said, it was pretty much a sort of domination, I thought, really, for most of the game. I think Spurs might have had a 20-minute spell sort of towards the end of the first half. But really, it was just comfortable, I thought, and actually really enjoyable. As we mentioned, the likes of Martinelli just taking the ball and skinning up their players for fun. The way Saka got the ball and had 2 or 3 men on him, but that wasn't a problem. He could still shift and find space, and the likes of Xhaka and Partey really dominating that midfield. Because I don't know about you guys, I heard a lot about Bentancur and Højbjerg. I saw a lot of combined 11s with them two in, and I thought they got absolutely bossed in that game.
Oh, mate, honestly, they're just hod carriers. That's what they are. I mean, if Thomas Partey could play like this week in, week out because of his, his fitness, his health, I don't think there's a better midfielder in the league, really, to do what he does. He's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, coming to you now, Kunjan, I mean, it really did, like Ray just said, and going through the way that we took a grip on the game early doors, it calmed me down a lot. I know that's for sure. Because they just fill you with like an air of confidence now when you watch the team. I mean, you mentioned like I'm not going to dwell on it right at this moment, but you mentioned about maybe there's a chink with regards to Gabriel, blah blah. But overall, this squad, I just get so much confidence when they're on the ball now, and the way that we're playing is so sustainable that everyone should surely, all non-Arsenal fans that watch the game, should see now that the games that we're winning, it's not a fluke. It's not like that run we had when under Unai Emery, when we went 21 games unbeaten. And this is different. This is entirely different, isn't it? The way that we're playing, it's very sustainable, and you can see that we are a very, very good team now.
I think the difference between Unai Emery's side and Arteta's is we can watch the game and say that's good football, that's enjoyable football. I think every Arsenal fans, every ounce of their atom was quivering every time Unai Emery put out his side, because he was literally put like 15 men behind the ball and just ensured that one. I feel like these tactics is something we watched over the weekend with a certain Italian man. He was trying to adapt the same thing, but I can't think of a name. Can't think of a name of someone who fits that. But it's so enjoyable. It's not the 1980s counter-attacking football style. It's not a style which is pragmatic. It's actually it's fluid football. I think when we used to watch Arsene Wenger and how he used to evolve the midfield with the 4-2-3-1, how he would get the wingers coming in, how he'd get the fullbacks, and they would play the triangles. Arteta has that, but maybe not as silky. But then again, when you watch even like a Man City, you can see there's a certain blueprint, but he's stamping his own authority. He's putting in a certain style. Um, if Man City were for like when they played over the weekend against a bunch of another team with a very interesting manager. When City were 4 goals up, it's not like they went for the jugular. They also tend to take the foot off the gas, which I think we saw in the North London derby, which could also be Arteta trying to think about Liverpool because you don't want Jesus to be suspended. You don't want Partey to overrun himself going into the game. Small little things like that. But it was, even when the players came off, if Spurs were not down to 10 men, but they were down to 11, they were still with 11 men on the pitch. I think the style, again, I use this word, as I said earlier, the camaraderie between all 11 players on the pitch. There's a certain connect. It's as if what Arteta always wanted is finally coming through. And whether people are pushing this under the rug, which is fair about Arsenal's title hopes. I think every Arsenal fan can very confidently say that yes, we may not win, we'll give a run. But one thing is certain, whether or not, whatever position we finish, we look like an assertive top 4 side. And credit to Edu, credit to Arteta, credit to the players and to the entire coaching team for making us love the team even more this time round.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, come to you now, Ryan, about the first goal. I mean, it was just a joy. I mean, before the first goal, we had that scare where we played that really high line from one of their free kicks, and it squirted through, and Aaron Ramsdale had to make a really, really good save, very underrated save, actually, I think. It was from a very close distance, and because of the way Richarlison got his foot on the ball, it wasn't a clean touch, and he was probably expecting a cleaner touch, so he positioned himself accordingly for where his foot was, but it came off at a bit of an angle, so he had very little time to actually act on that, and I thought he did really well in the end. But that was just a one-off thing, really. And the lead up to the goal, I mean, everyone's sort of been talking about it. 22 passes leading up to that goal was quite reminiscent in some ways to the goal that Lacazette scored against Watford, I think it was, where the ball came in from the side and he hit it from just outside the box and it flew into the top right-hand corner, if you remember. But this one was even sweeter, I think, because of the curl on the ball. And the way that Partey hit that ball with his side foot, it had a lot of power on it and a lot of twist on it to get it into the top right-hand corner. And what a goal. And just a quick add-on that you can talk about, really. I had a comment about the spine of the team, if I can just find it here.
Yeah, I saw it from Shane. Martinelli was great, but Xhaka, Partey, Saliba, and Jesus is a solid spine. They're the most important for us. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It is really, really apparent now, and when we've got Partey in the team, as we saw at the weekend, he makes just so much difference. And as I say, I can't see much of a better midfielder. Midfield pairing, to be fair, if you include Xhaka at the moment in the Premier League, the way that they're both playing. So yeah, it was just a wonder, wasn't it, that goal? I mean, what were you thinking when he was just about to strike it? Considering what we've seen in the past.
Don't shoot. Going by his just don't shoot. Because he even goes there to affect the goalkeeper. No, but I said this last night to you over on my podcast. It's the way it's again when you watch it back again and again, it just puts a smile on your face because Saka's down the wing, he passes to Ben White. Ben White just perfectly just sees him in his eyesight, Partey. So he just lays it off to him, and he just comes in, doesn't take the touch, and just controlled it. It was like a perfect controlled shot. And it goes, as you say, because of where he was as well. He wasn't even directly facing like in front of the goal. It was like he was like 2 or 3 yards to the right hand side of the post, but he's hit in such a way where it's curled even more outside the post, and then hit top bins. It made that even better. That goal, it was just like everything. And you said it. I think you mentioned it last time, but you said it last season. Partey will come back for us, play against Tottenham, and score his first goal with his foot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but no,
it's just a 1 match late because I think he missed that one with injury, didn't he?
Yeah.
So he's been saving it ever since.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was a fantastic goal. Again for years. Look, a few years we went for a stage where our midfielders weren't scoring, and for years our midfielders and wingers and strikers weren't taking shots from outside the box. They'd want to walk it into the goal, as they used to say. But so it's now refreshing. It's so refreshing to have these players that are willing to have that shot outside the box, no matter where it is on the pitch. Have that shot off, and it's mixing it up. It's keeping the opponents on their toes because they don't know what's going to come. Because this ain't an Arsenal of Arsene Wenger's era, as I say, that used to just pass it to death and walk it in or back in if you're on me. We are now winning to add shooting outside the box to our arm. We've got players and personnel. Partey had a reputation at Atletico for doing things like that, scoring in sort of goals on a regular basis. When he did take the shots. We've got Xhaka now in goal scoring form. We've got Saka is willing to get the goals and assists as well. We've got Martinelli starting to contribute more goals and assists into his game. We've got someone in the middle in Jesus who we clearly, if we had him last year, we would never have had an issue with top 4. That's clear as day, because he is literally so hungry and motivated to prove Pep wrong. He's everywhere. He is literally everywhere in that box. When he gets the ball's glued to his foot, and he'll take on 2-3 defenders in the box to get the shot off or get the pass off. I mean, the goal get into it probably later, but even Jesus' goal, as I think you said last night, reminiscent to an Ian Wright era where he fights at every little detail, every little chance he's got. He'll fight for it until he can't.
That was an Ian Wright goal. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, we've screamed at for that.
So what I loved, sorry to cut you, Ryan, but what I loved about that was that how many times have we seen a player that might just be too clumsy and might just go straight into it? He had the awareness to actually hold off Romero, still control it, and still poke it, and not foul the goalkeeper. You know, it's amazing. Small details like that, isn't it? That you know, in the moment you don't really sort of think of, but when you watch it back, and you think, well, you know, with all due respect, Lacazette might have done that different, and it might have been a different outcome.
Well, he wouldn't have been in the box. He wouldn't have been in the box, would he?
He wouldn't have been in the box. No.
He wouldn't have scored that goal full stop last season.
Go back to the documentary briefly for a second. There was I think it was episode 4 or 5 of the documentary on Amazon, where Lacazette's got a one-on-one session with the Albert, I think it was, and they get a clip up of Benzema and his movement in the box. So clearly they want a striker that does what Benzema does, and we've now got someone younger, fitter, hungrier, that does that. And as you say, it's the little details now, holding off the defender, making sure you don't find the goalkeeper, and making sure you get the ball in the net and don't scuff it wide. It's them little details, and I'm ecstatic we've got him, because it's not just his goals either. It's the assists. He's contributing assists as well. And because of a certain person, I say person, he's not even human, let's be honest, up in Manchester, he's going under the radar. And I know what, I'm happy with it, because we get on with our business, he can get on with his business, and we see what happens in May.
I think it's only Haaland that has more goal contributions in the Premier League. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's incredible what he's doing for us.
I think it's I think it's actually Maddison now, just behind Haaland after yesterday. I was watching the second half of the Leicester game, Leicester Forest yesterday, and think he'd just overtaken him. But regardless of that, he's just. I mean, the phrase "transformational signing" literally could have been made for Gabriel Jesus, couldn't it? Really, this season he's and
Look how much
Saliba.
he paid for him as well. £45 million for a proven Premier League winning striker.
I said at the time, didn't I, Ryan, when we signed him, people were moaning about the price because he's only got a year left. And if you consider the quality of player we've got, it's an absolute bargain. Absolute bargain. If anyone wants to sign him now because of the contract he's on and the form he's in, how much are you talking now? Seriously, for 25-year-old Gabriel Jesus in this form with a long contract? I mean, 100 million?
More, I say, just more than that, yeah. Because of his contract, maybe more.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember? Sorry, do you remember in pre-season when I think it was the first game of the season? It was Nuremberg we were playing, and we were 2-0 down. I think it was after about half an hour.
Yeah.
And then they brought on Gabriel Jesus just before half time, I believe, and he come on and scored. And ever since that moment, it's changed for us. Since pre-season, ever since that moment, he's come in and he's absolutely run it for us. He's been brilliant. The only criticism I can give him is I think he maybe should have had a couple more goals, but I'm being really harsh. He's been brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can't argue with that at all. But someone, going back to that question really about the spine, it really is true. It really rings true. And I have to say, I mean, I'll come on to you in a second, Kunjan, about the comment you made earlier about Gabriel. Honestly, I'm really not worried about Gabriel at all. I think he's a fantastic player. I know you're not saying you're worried about him. I know you weren't suggesting that. But I think the partnership between him and Saliba is a really, really good one. And we mentioned this yesterday on your show, Ryan. There's something you can't have two centre backs that are too sort of identical that play in exactly the same way. It's almost like the way I put it, it's like a good cop, bad cop kind of partnership that they've got. Whereas Gabriel is much more of an emotional, sort of highly charged, old-fashioned type of defender. He can be a bit erratic, but he's still young. He's still a young player. And in some ways, we'll go on to the penalty situation in just a second as well. But then when you pair him alongside the really, really calm and serene and, Rolls-Royce defender of Saliba, I think they really complement each other very, very well. But let's move on to that penalty scenario, Ray, just briefly. I mean, it was a bit of a catalogue of errors. I mean, Xhaka sort of miscontrolled it, sort of played it over to Richarlison, and it was one of those things. And I think it's very, very tough to go for an entire game without making any mistakes whatsoever. We clearly made a couple of mistakes in one passage of play, which led to it. And I think if Gabriel hadn't have made any kind of attempt to stop that shot from Richarlison, we'd all be moaning that he didn't make any attempt.
Yeah, of course we would, to make that.
So it's one of those things for me. I just put it down to, just one of those bad mistakes really all around. What are your thoughts about it? Did you think it was a penalty first off? Because when I first saw it, I must admit, I thought it was a bit soft. But then obviously they showed it back and I thought, well, no, if that was the other way around, I'd be screaming for a penalty.
Yeah, unfortunately, Andrew, I thought it was a stonewall penalty as soon as it was.
Yeah, I did when I saw the replay.
Yeah, and I had my head in my hands, just like, how has this happened? But as you mentioned, it was a bit of a poor touch from Xhaka, and he had a brilliant game. That was really his only bad moment. And of course, when it gets to a player like Richarlison, who I officially can't stand now, he's up there with Bruno Fernandes as one of my most hated Premier League players currently. But whether you want to say he's looking for it or he's clever, he's always going to get himself in front of that ball, and he doesn't need any encouragement to go down, does he? As you say, Gabriel has to go for it, because if he just stands there, Richarlison goes around him and we say, why didn't you challenge? Unless he literally comes in and takes the ball first and cleanly, then I think that's the only way that's not a penalty. But then he's still got to get through Richarlison, and he's always going to go down. So unfortunately, it was a penalty. I do agree with you about Gabriel in the team, though, I think we need to stick with him. I think he is making a lot of errors, and we are fortunate because it hasn't cost us overly yet. We're still getting results even with him making errors, and him and Saliba complement each other really well. We could move Ben White there, or even Tomiyasu, who plays there for Japan, I believe. But as you mentioned, it would mean another relationship forming between him, Saliba, the goalkeeper, even the midfielders in front, Partey and whatnot. So I just think we need to just try and stick with it. Gabriel has a lot of pluses that he brings to the side as well as what he's doing at the moment. So let's just try and support him.
Absolutely, I think so. And I think Clive, I think it was on the Arsenal Vision podcast, made a very good point as well about Gabriel, is that he's being really, if you think about it, asked to play 1.5 positions, because our left back is obviously like a left midfielder, and he's having to cover that space as well. And he's doing a really good job, in my opinion. And like I said, 24 years old, it's very, very young for a central defender still. It's too early for me to start panicking and thinking we've got to make a change. Obviously, if it carries on past Christmas, he's still making mistakes, you've got to have another look at it. But at the moment, I just think he's a really good partner for Saliba. Kunjan, no complaints really about the penalty, I assume, from you either. But I think the 10 maybe minutes around that sort of figure after that penalty was just the only time really where I got a little bit worried. And I was talking to Ray off air about this. I suddenly started to think, oh God, it's not going to be like another Man United game, is it? Where they just suddenly, out of nowhere, a long ball comes and they just catch us on the break and they take the lead or something, even though we're dominating the match. I suddenly started having those feelings just for a short period of time. I mean, how are you feeling around that sort of period when you're watching the game?
So the one thing is that I go back to last season. We need to start winning both our halves. And the minute you do that, I mean, by mathematic logic, you've won the game. Yeah. Going into the break 1-1, anything and everything can happen. Exactly what you just said, that next thing you know, Tottenham are going to start playing the long balls because the front three were quite pacey. We're playing a high line. One ping from Perisic or from, let's say, someone like Højbjerg from the middle of the park, and we're stretched. Yeah. So that was something that I was a little worried about, because that's how we got punished against United. Despite what everybody said, that we were the better team, we played the better game, we were on top throughout the match, yet the score does not reflect that. We lost 3-1 because of a small little lapse in concentration, because we took United very much for granted. We're like, we got this, and we shouldn't have gone into the break 1-1. I genuinely feel again, if you watch the first half, we had a lot of opportunities. Even in the second half, I think you will obviously mention this later on, but we had a clear-cut penalty, because if Richarlison is falling like a ton of bricks and Jesus falls like a bag of feathers, both said and done, they both fell, and it was in the same manner. I think so. Why weren't we given the penalty? Because, I don't know, maybe Richarlison has a flair for falling, while Jesus is a little more humble in his fall, I guess. But I do believe we deserve the penalty. Even in the first half, we had a lot of opportunities where we could have converted. I think Martinelli had an opportunity where we could have gone 2-0 up at the time. Odegaard has this in his game where he'll have a clear-cut shot and he should take it, but he'll play a pass. So we've had so many of these opportunities where we're like, if we did take these opportunities, we would have had a much healthier scoreline than what reflected. And this is something going forward we have to consider. We can't just score and then shut shop, take the foot off the gas. The teams are not going to be Tottenham. We're going to face a Liverpool. We're going to face a Man City. We're going to face a Chelsea, and they're going to punish us if we do that. So at 1-1 at halftime, I was a little concerned because of our high line, which no complaints on the tactics. It's just, again, when I speak of the chink in the armor, you mentioned about Saliba being the Rolls Royce. He's actually a Rolls Royce which has a Ferrari a performance in him as well.
Yeah.
And playing the high line, Saliba is going to run. He's going to, maybe try and outmuscle a Son. Kane isn't the fastest, but Richarlison and Son do have the pace in them. But Gabriel may have that error where Son has the ball, he's trying to break the lines, and Gabriel pulls him back. And we're just like, uh-oh. And it's us. It's us. Like, Gabriel could have just, like, nudged him and, I don't know, 30-match ban or something. So you do have that concern. You do have that worry about us. And again, I think the boys knew what they were doing. Arteta knew what he was doing. And again, the score, in this case, the score does reflect the performance. I think we're all very happy about it.
Yeah, I think he's got to be the next project. Now that Arteta has completely sorted out his first project in Xhaka and turned it into the best number 8 in the world, he's got to now work on Gabriel and make him the best central defender in the world.
Maybe he's the best number 34 in the world. That I can give you. The best 34 in the world.
Exactly, yeah. So, Ryan, I mean, coming into the half-time, I actually think that just before half-time, we started to get our act together, which was good. I think we had a couple of opportunities and started controlling the game again before the half-time whistle. But how were you feeling going into sort of half-time? Were you slightly worried as well about, oh God, are we going to have another 80% game where we 8% possession, dominating the game, but you can see us losing like with the fluky long ball goals akin to that Man United game that happened?
In terms of how I was feeling after, I was disappointed in the sense that it was 1-1 because it wasn't a 1-1 game. We completely dominated. It was.
Yeah, I'm a big thing about what Kunjan said about winning both our halves as well. I mean, how many times have I mentioned that in the past? I'm a big fan of that, and we've been doing that a lot lately this season. So I was really disappointed about that.
So what didn't really help, what really frustrated me when I was in the stadium, Block 4, and what was frustrating me and other fans was the referee, who, by the way, has got a reputation this season for being very lenient with Tottenham. It's another London derby. Was quick enough giving the free kicks and penalties for them in that first half. Literally didn't hesitate. Whenever we were getting kicked in the air, he was waiting 5 to 10 seconds, then he'd blow, or he just wouldn't give us anything. And that was frustrating. And then when he gave the penalty, it was like, of course you're going to give the penalty, even though it was a penalty. It was like, of course you would. He didn't. Again, he doesn't even hesitate. But the fact it was a 1-1, it didn't feel like a 1-1 game because we were just dominant. Look at the stats come on the screen at half time. And I'm thinking, again, how is it 1-1? Because apart from that one goal, it's one on target for them. We've completely, absolutely trounced them. Like I said to you last night, when the game kicked off, they got the ball, passed it, made a couple of passes, and pinged it to us, and went, come at us then. And we were counter-attacking. It didn't work, obviously, because, like a couple of people in the chat said, Kane's not the quickest. Son's out of form. Richarlison is just falling all over the shop when there's no even around him sometimes. And they had no midfield. Their midfield was non-existent. I mean, that's partly down to our midfield actually having a good relationship and a good bond with each other and knowing each other's roles respectively and knowing they can rely on each other going forward and backwards, etc. So the frustration was there. I wasn't worried in the sense of, are we going to lose it in terms of by our own doing? I was more concerned if we lose it, is it because of the ref maybe? Maybe the ref does what he did against Chelsea and lets things go that he shouldn't. I think, apart from that, because we're at home, I was thinking, you know what, I believed in Arteta. I believe in Arteta nowadays that he'll get that team into the dressing room and say, "Look, we've dusted ourselves down. We haven't won the first half. It is what it is. But keep doing what you're doing. Keep plugging away. The opportunities will come, and when they do, you take them, and we'll get out of this with 3 points." And we did, and we absolutely we deserve. I don't get what the media say. There's the most one-sided North London derby, home or away, that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
That's saying something.
I think the stat was they had one shot on target from open play during the whole game, didn't they? I think that.
Yeah, it was a P roller as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we limited them to nothing.
Yeah, sorry to cut you, Andrew. I was a little bit disappointed watching Match of the Day because some of their analysis seemed to be that
they're trying to make it more balanced.
Spurs were having more of an off day, and I think it was Ian Wright and Alan Shearer. Obviously, love Ian Wright, but they kind of alluded that maybe their passing and their final ball was more off, and there might be some element to that. But I think it's really how we dictated that game, and we didn't allow them clear opportunities. They had to get their passing almost spot on because they didn't have the time or the space as such to be able to execute it like they often do. So I thought that was a little bit of a discredit to us, and I thought we managed it pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And going into the second half, all of our nerves were calmed very early doors. With regards to them potentially coming back and so on and so forth, we score, and that was just such a great time to score just after half time. We've had this conversation a bit earlier in the show about the finish and the way that we scored that goal and the tenacity and determination, the knowing that to follow it in, because it all started off with obviously a great shot by Saka, who also had a fantastic game, by the way. I honestly think that he's showing signs of getting back to his absolute best, and he's going to start scoring soon. There's no doubt about that as well. But the fact that the way that he's playing it's just beautiful to watch, to be honest. Anyway, he cuts in and makes that shot. And the fact that we're shooting more was alluded to at the end of the game. I think it was Erdegaard mentioned that when he was talking about the Partey goal, that they're practicing things like that, which helps break down a low block. If you can score from outside the box, it's a massive, which Trent Alexander-Arnold just did, by the way, with great free kick against Rangers in the Champions League that's on at the moment. But if we can score from just outside the box, it's going to make the job a lot easier. And obviously we had the goal by Vieira in the Europa League, which is a superb goal from outside the area. We've obviously had the goal from Partey in this game as well. But yeah, the way that he followed up that shot, Gabriel Jesus, it just would not have happened last season. We wouldn't have had that striker that was in that position, who had the intelligence to think, right, this goalkeeper could spill this. And he was right on there, beat the defender was just static. He nicked it off the defender and scored. And as I mentioned earlier, such an Ian Wright type of finish. It's just great to have that type of striker. So it really settled the nerves, though, didn't it, Ray? And we really sort of controlled the game completely again from there on in.
Yeah, absolutely. We alluded to it earlier with Gabriel Jesus, but again, I'll sort of go back to it. There was so many different phases and aspects to it. As you mentioned, the shot from Saka itself. I thought Lloris was meant to be injured, by the way, but apparently, he sort of miraculously recovered for the game, which brilliant. But yeah, obviously he messed that up, and some strikers maybe wouldn't anticipate a mistake happening, and then again it happens. He anticipates it. Romero, who again, speaking with the enemy, they really do rate and really do say he's a top defender in world football. He absolutely just held him off, and he's half his size. And then the skill and composure to, all right, it's virtually a tap in, but you still got to execute it. And as I mentioned earlier, it's easily to go bundling into the goalkeeper, which is always a foul, or even foul the defender, which he didn't do. He was able to hold him very, very smartly. So there were so many different parts to that goal, and you've just got to be switched on for every single part of it. And all of this is happening in a split second, isn't it? So he's a very, very intelligent footballer, Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah.
And we needed something like that because that's how Spurs defend, right? They just sit there, and we had to. Yeah. We couldn't necessarily pass through them. We had to shoot. There had to be a deflection. There had to be some sort of error from them. Really, I feel anyway, to break them.
Exactly. Well, that's the big part of taking shots from either just inside or just outside the area. Anything can happen. It can take a wicked deflection and go in. It could, ricochet into someone's path. I mean, or it could be spilt by the goalkeeper, like it happened.
Yeah, I mean, even with the Partey goal, I feel like they probably thought, let Thomas Partey shoot, because he's been doing that every game since he plays, and it always goes into the top tier. So let him shoot. But what it done is it obviously went in the top bins. He broke their deadlock, and it was a real FU goal, wasn't it? It was
one of the best moments of the game, actually. I don't know if you noticed it. The camera panned to a very sad-looking Harry Kane walking back to the halfway line after we scored that Partey goal, and you could just see him go, "Oh fuck!"
But you can see that was.
And I really enjoyed that.
You can see that in Harry Kane's face there, you can literally see the game plan change, can't you? Because the game plan was, all right, they're just going to try and pass it through us and, as you say, walk it in. But when you score a goal like that on the edge of the box, you have to completely rip up the rule book, and you almost have to start again, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's so disappointing to concede a penalty again to Spurs. I mean, it's just inevitable, isn't it? It's like death, taxes, and Spurs are going to get a penalty against Arsenal. That's the only certainties in life. And it's just so disappointing the way that because everyone just goes on about, that was his, I think, what was it, 100th away goal in the league or something like that. And it's just a fucking penalty. Take away the penalties. Harry Kane's not a lot, really, is it? I'll tell you what, he's one of the laziest players you'll ever see. I mean, I watched him, excuse me, I watched the England games, which I don't know why I did, because they're absolutely dreadful. And I just watched him as well. He walks around the pitch, never ever presses, doesn't do any work of any kind whatsoever. He's such a lazy player, lucky player. I mean, anyway, it's not a Spurs podcast, but I just wanted to make that point. But so I mean, going on.
If it was a Spurs podcast, it'd be over in a minute. We are shit. Good night.
Exactly. Well, unless you watch Expressions and just swears for about half an hour, which is quite amusing. But I mean, after that, again, it's a game of keep ball, really, wasn't it, Kunjan? And the next sort of thing of note, really. I mean, I know we had a few chances and some great play again. But the next real thing of note is the sending off. And I said on Ryan's channel last night, my honest opinion, right, when I was just watching it, I thought, that's a booking straight away. I thought that's a real hard tackle. I didn't notice it, to be straight away. I'm being completely honest when I was watching it. Straight away, that's a red card. So when the red card came out, I was like, oh, that's good. We've actually got something that's going in our favour just for once. But then obviously you do see the replays and you can see how bad the tackle was. The ball was nowhere near him. He had been getting rinsed to pieces by Martinelli the whole game, and it was complete and utter just annoyance. It was just one of those tackles where you just thought, well, fuck this. I'm not getting in anywhere with this guy. Let's remember that Martinelli was actually running towards his own goal when this happened as well. No need to make that tackle at all. It was a clear sending off but only for me, really, when I'm being completely honest, after the event had actually happened. Did you think it straight away?
So I was actually messaging a group that we're all in. And as soon as the tackle happened, I wrote, has to be a red. Because he went studs in, he was at Martinelli's ankle, he was lunging in. And I think Ray said it earlier about the penalty, that if that happened to us, we'd expect a penalty. And I straight away thought, I'm like, when Xhaka went lunging in when we lost to Man City last season, nobody complained saying that's not a red. In fact, if anything, we're like, Xhaka is an idiot. It's a different story. Everyone's eating humble pie for saying that now. But the minute I saw the tackle, I was like, he's gone. He has to be gone. And if it was a yellow card, he's the luckiest man on that pitch. And I think even Emerson Royal did not make a case for it. He got the card, he went to Martinelli, and he walked. I think Conte was more infuriated about the decision than Emerson Royal, because I think he knew it the minute he had lunged in. And again, Ray mentioned this earlier. Like he was running circles around Martinelli. He was frustrated. He had it, and he was just trying to make a statement, but it went wrong. And it was a well-deserved red card, just as much as it was a well-deserved penalty for them. So if you don't think the penalty was deserved, which obviously every Spurs fan will now turn around and say, if we had it another way, we'd not have the penalty and not have a red card. We'd still get red. Exactly. That is the fact of the story. But no, it was a straight red. I again stand by that. There've been decisions that have gone our way. Let's not forget the infamous David Luiz invisible tackle that resulted in a red card. Until today, we don't know what touched him. Was it? We don't know what touched him. What Wolves players were? Was it a gush of carbon dioxide that went into David Luiz's foot? But we don't know. But the truth is, he got sent off for that. Yeah.
Let's not forget the amount of challenges that Kane was getting away with throughout the entire match as well.
You know, when you mentioned that he's a lazy player, I wanted to add on to that. He's a big bully, and it's not the English player, the English league bully. He'll just like throw himself on players. If I didn't know better, I think Kane was single. You know, the way he's always throwing himself on everyone. Because at any and every given opportunity, have a look. He'll just like back into a guy and then fly up in the air, and there's nothing. I mean, when we talk about Harry Kane, we talk about Harry Maguire, and everyone speaks of an agenda. It's the proof is in the pudding. But let's not get into that, because that's again a different podcast for a different day that can last hours and hours. But it was such a deflated performance from Spurs, and Emerson Royal just put the cherry on the cake to say, we give up. If you're telling me Harry Kane was swearing after Partey's goal, Emerson Royal just book-ended the whole thing by saying, we're done, we want to go home.
Didn't he spend like 800 grand or something? Sorry, Andrew. Didn't he spend like 800 grand as well in order to improve as a footballer, Emerson Royal? 1 million. And he's, you know, fantastic. Money well spent. Really is, isn't it?
I don't know the story.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
Have you not heard this?
No.
He's got like you know, like hyperbolic chambers for like recovery and all of this to try and, you know, improve as an athlete. And as Ryan said, he spent up to £1 million of his own money to prove to Antonio Conte that he should be playing in the team. And then he goes and does something like that. You can't write it. You really can't.
He's one of the worst but I've said this on many occasions I've ever seen in the Premier League. He's awful.
Yeah, and we were looking at him at one point, weren't we? So he really did dodge a bullet there. To think, we could have. They could have had Tomiyasu, and we could have had him. Bloody hell!
I know, unbelievable.
How much did they spend on Jed Spence? Was it like 20 million, or was it 15 million on Jed Spence?
15 to 20, I think. Yeah.
I mean, it's good. It just goes to show that maybe the seats at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium are quite comfortable, that a £15 million signing can sit there and not flinch or muscle. It's amazing. Those seats must be really good.
I think, I don't know whether it's on record or not, but it's quite widely known that Conte doesn't rate him. He didn't want him.
Didn't want him
Jed Spence
at all. Wasn't he signing?
No.
He's making it perfectly clear now. So
do you know what? The worst thing that could happen, sorry, Ray, just quick one. The worst thing for us, really, as Arsenal fans, could be that the Emerson Royale sending off forces him to play Jed Spence, and Jed Spence actually does really well, and that could be one of those moments where unexpectedly a player comes in because of injury and just the place is his then from then on. And I hope that doesn't happen, really.
Yeah, I hope so. I was just going to say that he come out earlier, Conte, saying that he doesn't rate Matt Doherty. Yeah. So what's that going to do to team morale? I'm looking at it and obviously I'm laughing. It's brilliant, but I'm sort of looking at it and going, this is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to really unite them and he's going to put in Jed Spence and blah blah blah, or Conte's just going to tear that dressing room apart and they're going to have enough of him and eventually force him out.
I said this roughly on your show yesterday, didn't I, Ryan, about the players starting to, if they will start to get really pissed off with the way they play football, because Richarlison and Son were basically having to play so deep they were almost like wing backs and defending on the edge of their box. They're not going to want to do that. And it's funny enough because I listened to I spend half my time advertising this the podcast, don't I? But the Arsenal Vision podcast, which is a great podcast, I can't deny it. Clive said a very similar thing today when I listened to it. He said that Son's just all he wants to do is run forward and shoot a goal. He's not going to be happy defending on the edge of his box for much longer. And as soon as the players start complaining about this to Conte, if they've got the balls to do so, the whole dressing room could just fall apart just like that. And we've seen it so many times under Conte at these other clubs where it happens and all of a sudden it just collapses. I would not be surprised at all if in the next 2 or 3 months this happens at Tottenham. The players get really disillusioned with the roles that they're having to play and it would all just go to shit. I really do believe that. And it's funny that Clive said a very similar thing that I was listening to today as well. He's noticed it, and I noticed it yesterday.
Mm.
So I wouldn't be surprised at all if it just, we get the usual Conte collapse.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I honestly don't see Conte seeing the season out. And even if he does, he'll be gone in the summer anyway. Because that's what he does. He does a 2-season or 1.5-year stint, and he goes on to the next job. Because he doesn't get what he wants. He throws his toys at his pen, goes on to the next job, and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But I'm mate. It's Tottenham. I'm loving it.
It's so funny, isn't it? It's so funny.
They had Poch. They bought the Golden Generation through, 1-0 with him. Got to a Champions League final. Lost like 30 seconds. Bottled it. They've since then had Mourinho, Trophy Mourinho. Didn't win no trophy. Sacked the guy before the final. And put Mason in.
Mourinho won the Conference League with Roma. Sorry to cut you, Ryan, but he won a trophy with Roma, but not Tottenham. Yeah. Amazing.
Oh no, only Tottenham could do that as well. Then they bought Spirits of Santo to replace him eventually. Gave him 8 days and basically like, off you go because Harry Kane's not happy. He wants out, so you're gone. Kane goes, I want a world-class manager. They got Conte after saying that somebody won't having what you want. We'll give you what you want now. And they haven't really backed him. I don't get what anyone says. They didn't really back him in the window. It's just, as you say, they brought players in like Jed Spence that he doesn't even rate.
They spent about the same as us, didn't they?
Yeah.
In the summer.
Yeah. More. I think they spent more than us. They spent more.
Yeah, I think they did. 60 million on bloody Richarlison.
What's it? The first signing, they made a big deal out of it. It was Perisic, and that's a free. They made a big deal out of it. He's 33 plus? He's one of his career, basically.
And he was so ineffective against us, wasn't he, Perisic? I can't remember anything of any note that he really done.
I think he's struggling with the pace of the Premier League. I mean, it could have been predicted easily that he's going to struggle at his age coming into the Premier League now, at the pace that it is, and the position that he's been asked to play as wing back, which is probably the most strenuous position you can play on the pitch. He's struggling. He's struggling big time.
I just want to add on to what Ryan said. Ryan made a very interesting point about the chronological order of the managers. There's a very clear pattern in that. Post Pochettino, Mourinho, Nuno Espirito Santos, and now Conte. All three of them play very boring football, for lack of a better word.
Very passive.
Yeah.
And if we look at what Pochettino did, Pochettino brought this streamlined football, this very silky, very attacking. That's where the names like Son was a player. He became a world-class player under Pochettino. And all these three managers have somehow managed to bring him a notch below. There are rumors of Juventus wanting to get rid of Allegri and bring in Conte, which does leave the door open for Pochettino to come back.
Or Allegri to go in. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, but again, you
Allegri
see,
to go to Spurs.
but if the ethos for what these guys are working on is let's play, the 1800 style of football, then even Pochettino's out because it must be that this is what they're working towards. Because they must be looking at the blueprint of what Conte did with Chelsea and saying, despite him winning the Premier League, he did play it with this style. Jose Mourinho won the Premier League with the same style. Wolves were propelled to a certain status with this style. We may not be fans of it, but every management out there must be thinking it's a safe option. Let's put our money on it.
Yeah,
that's it. It is a safe option. It's boring, but it gets results, right? And that's what they're banking on. They're banking on just getting, whether it's 1-0 wins or whatever, just to get over the line, just to propel them up the table and get, try and win a trophy. It's not exciting at all. And if they're out of the competitions and they're nowhere near, the top of the league or even Champions League, I'm sure, like you guys alluded to earlier, Conte will be gone. And they probably will be crying for Pochettino or whoever else to come back. So
the trouble is that whatever manager they have, there'll always be Spurs, and that's the problem. And the squad that they've got is just a stale squad. They're all over the age curve or getting there, and they've got to do a whole complete reset, which they'll never do because they
you mentioned Andrew. Sorry, you mentioned they have a stale squad. If you remember the transfer window when they were judging who had the better window, not a single channel said Arsenal had the better window. Not a single channel, not a single pundit said Arsenal had the better window. Everyone said we're happy with what Arsenal have done, but Tottenham have gone and bought right. They've got youth with experience. They've gone and spent correctly. They have depth. Arsenal don't have that depth, and yet here we are.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny.
And we mentioned it. Oh, sorry, Andrew, just to cut in very quick. But we mentioned it earlier with Gabriel Jesus. We're in Europa League, and we were able, and credit to Mikel and Edu, they managed to pull a player like that, where Tottenham couldn't. They had to spend even more money to get Richarlison in. So, huge amount of credit. And, they brought in some good players, don't get me wrong, but they've just, if we sign those players in Europa League, I think we could sign all them players. Do you know what I mean? Whereas they're playing in Champions League, and I feel like they've just brought in Europa level players with that status.
Yeah,
I think they've wasted a window, personally.
Yeah, just by the two purchases of Jesus and Zinchenko makes us have a much, much, much better window because of the quality of those multiple winners that we've got and the age that they're at, the price that we paid for them. If you add them both together, it's only a little bit more than what they paid for Richarlison, who, bless him, never had more than a 10-goal season at Everton. And I bet you now he's wishing he was back at Everton.
And the ironic thing is,
it's crazy.
The ironic thing as well is that Basuma always had a good game against us when he played for Brighton, and yet he come on when the game was virtually done. So
they're not playing him.
No, he doesn't rate him, does he? Conte doesn't rate him.
It's just you couldn't write it, could you? It's just absolutely hilarious. But I mean, let's move on, Ray, to our. I mean, obviously afterwards we got the third goal, but they threw the towel in, like we were discussing earlier. And at one stage, he had all 5 substitutes ready to come on. I think he pulled up Brian Hill back right at the last minute. Only made the 4 substitutions, but that's pure Conte making it all about him. He threw the towel in, and he could use that sending off then as an excuse as to why they lost the game by making all of the 4 subs, saying the game's gone because of that sending off, not because they're being outplayed, but he knew that they were being dominated, outplayed. So he thought, right, I'll use this moment and we'll take off all the best players, and we'll go from there. That was just him all over for me. I noticed that straight away. I don't know what your thoughts were, but I mean, obviously we'll talk about the third goal as well. What your thoughts about that? But that just really was a snidey thing to do from him.
It was really cowardly, I thought.
Very cowardly.
Really, really cowardly. You know, if we were in that situation, we were 2-1 down, I'd want our manager to put on attacking substitutions to go for it. A bit like when we lost to United, we were 2-1 down. We had to make some sort of change because we were losing the game anyway. And unfortunately, it backfired for us. We lost that game 3-1. But at least we went and tried to get that equaliser. You know, we weren't negative. We didn't bring on, 5 defensive players and take off 2 of our better attackers that day. So, I mean, God forbid, but I'm so glad, if you're a Tottenham fan, I'm sure you'd be so annoyed that, he just threw the towel in like that in a North London derby.
In a North London derby, that's the main thing, isn't it? They literally gave up in the middle of a North London derby. And if I was a Tottenham fan, I would be absolutely spewing. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I bet their podcasts are absolutely going mental over that decision. I mean, it was dreadful, really. Really dreadful.
You can never say never, can you? But when I was watching that at that time and I saw Son and Richarlison coming off, I thought, that's it. We got this. We got this now. You know, they're going to have to do something very, very special to break our defence. They've already had their fortune with the penalty, and with 10 men as well, just wasn't happening.
Yeah. No, I mean, that would have been one of the. I bet I don't know. I haven't checked actually, which I sometimes do. But on Twitter, I wouldn't have minded looking at the hashtag Conte out on Twitter after he made that decision to bring off all the players and just literally surrender the game at that point. It was just dreadful. I thought really, really cowardly, as you mentioned. And just get your thoughts on the third goal, really, which came sort of fairly. Am I right in thinking? I'm going mental. It was just after. It was still 2-1 at that point. After the sending off,
it was.
Then he made the substitutions. Then we went 3-1 up shortly after, didn't we?
Yes, we did. It was.
Right.
It was Martinelli, wasn't it, picking up the ball and literally just driving through that midfield, which was non-existent.
Unbelievable. So good.
Bringing Romero out. That allowed Xhaka to have that space. He had a really good first touch, unlike in the first half. He had a really good first touch this time. Was able just to sort of set it on that left peg and smash it past Lloris. And what a goal, what a feeling. And really, really, really good play.
It was. And do you know what? It was one of those goals where you knew, even before he kicked the ball, it was going to be a goal because of the movement he made. The way he switched it. Obviously, Martinelli took the players away with him. The way he switched it onto his left foot and he got that space, you just thought goal straight away before he'd even hit the ball, didn't he? It was beautiful. Yeah,
and we know Xhaka's got a hammer of a left foot, right? And then, in the box, if he's got a clear shot at goal, you always as long as it's on target, you always fancy it to be a goal.
Yeah, and it gave him the same stats as Bernardo Silva and Salah so far this season. 2 goals and 3 assists.
It's not bad company, is it?
No, absolutely. It's fantastic. I mean, Kunjan, let's just have a chat really, to finish up really about the rest of the second half. It just went really smoothly, didn't it, to be honest with you? The only disappointment maybe is that we didn't get the fourth.
That's what I mentioned. I think we took the foot off the gas, and that's where my biggest problem was because we could have exploited the one advantage we had, which was one more player. But I do also feel even if there were 11 players on the pitch, we were confident. We had it together. We had opportunities. I think it was Gabriel Jesus um, on the far post. He had a clean header and he hit it wide.
Yeah,
We should have had a penalty. I mean, we just didn't make noise about it because we're 3-1 up. They're shit. Why cause more misery? But yeah, I do believe, and it's a statement. You know what? Everybody, and this is getting on my nerves now. Like we're top of the league. Oh, they haven't faced a big test. We went up against United. Yeah, you see, Arsenal are not good enough. We beat Tottenham. Yes, they beat Tottenham, but Tottenham were 10 men down. I mean, we're just not catching a break. When I think it was Ray who mentioned this earlier, and he was mentioning about, for example, Conte putting Emerson Royale in instead of Doherty or Jed Spence. Nobody highlights that. Not even the Spurs fans. Maybe a
Yeah.
section of them do.
mm,
When we get a Fabio Vieira who's had an injury, and he doesn't start, what are Arsenal doing? Do they know their approach? Is this smart of Arsenal? And you're just like, he's going to play. He's injured. They know what they're doing. They know why they're signing their players. And as soon as
mm,
he kicks in, this player looks good, but give him time. It's when we keep saying that there's an agenda. I know I've messaged Andrew privately because I don't live in England, and I'd love to know the scene over there. And I keep asking Andrew, is this normal? Because this shouldn't be normal. Why is it that Arsenal have such a big agenda? We're not going to win the Premier League. I promise you, if that happens, heavens will open up and we again, if that happens, we will be called the new Leicester. And you're just like, you know what? We'll take it because that's what's been happening. And I digress from what I was saying earlier about the winning. But even
yeah,
if we win 5-1 or 6-1 or 8-1, they'd have still turned around and said, yes, Arsenal did win that because Tottenham were not good enough on the day and they were down to 10 men. It's not a case of Arsenal were ruthless, Arsenal were clinical. The approach from the manager was very pragmatic. No, none of that. And there's this whole build up of Conte is a specialist, he's more experienced, Arteta's still learning the game. I think bar Guardiola and Klopp in the league, I think Arteta has beaten the likes of Tuchel, Graham Potter, Mourinho. He's steamrolled past everyone, yet not good enough.
no, exactly. It's always been the way. But like Steve F said there, I don't really care what they say about us. We just keep winning, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Pretty much.
there's always been an agenda against Arsenal. I go through stages where it just doesn't bother me. I go through stages where I just laugh about it. I go through stages where it gets on my nerves again and I get angry about it.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, it's always going to happen. Like, Ryan, if we beat Liverpool at the weekend, it will only be because Liverpool are under par. They're
They're below
struggling at the
par,
moment.
they're not
They've
in
got
form.
they've got problems. We can't win. We won't be able to win with the media if we beat Liverpool at the weekend because we're favourites with the bookies to actually beat them, which is amazing. Which obviously should be. We're top of the league. We're 12 points ahead of them, we're 11 points ahead of them, whatever it is at the moment. But yeah, we can't win really with regards to whether we do or not. We'll just either get if we draw, for example, Arsenal should have won that game because they're in real good form. Liverpool are in poor form. Blah blah blah. If we do win, well, Arsenal should have won that game because we're in good form. Blah blah blah. If we lose, how can Arsenal lose to this poor Liverpool team, with poor form, and Liverpool are back and blah blah blah. So yeah, I mean, what are your expectations for? Well, actually, before we go on to that, let's talk about match on Thursday because we touched on it yesterday. And although as much we'd love to, we can't really make 11 changes because I don't think there's a whole other team. We've got a very good, strong bench nowadays, but we're missing El Nini. We're missing Smith Rowe, for example. They would have come into the team, no doubt at all. There's a slight nagging doubt about Cedric, which, believe it or not, is a bit disappointing because if Cedric could play, that means we could actually move Tomiyasu to centre back alongside Holding. That means we could rest both our main centre backs. But if Cedric is a bit of a doubt, then maybe Tomiyasu will have to. One of the defenders will have to play, probably Gabriel, because I think, am I right in saying he played against Zurich, didn't he?
He did,
Gabriel.
Yeah. So we got the day off that night.
That's it, yeah. So it'll more likely be Gabriel and Holding at the back if Cedric is out. So for once, we need to hope that Cedric plays, I think, on Thursday.
Yeah.
But so what are your expectations for this? Because I've said this before, and I don't think we could take them lightly. I think they're a good side, actually. But we all know they've turned over some good teams in Europe. So we can't just play like the under-21s, for example. So we've got to have a half-decent team out there. We do not want to be on the end of a shock result. We have to win this group. So how would you sort of look at playing this game? I mean, regarding who you leave in from the first choice players and who you don't.
In terms of who I wouldn't, who I start, sorry, in terms of who normally doesn't start, I'd rest Saka for the night, put Marquinhos in, have Saka on the bench just in case.
Definitely, yeah.
Give Odegaard the night off. Fabio Vieira, give him a chance to get another chance to stake his claim and give Odegaard a run for his money. So he knows he's got competition. Captain or not, you've got competition for your place.
Yeah.
Eddie, I put Eddie up top. Gives Jesus the night off as well. Hopefully, in terms of how things going and all that. Ben White, I'll give him a night off. Either way, if even Cedric ain't available, play Tomiyasu at right back, sorry. And if Cedric ain't available, it means we'd have to drop only one. And I'd literally say, I don't know. I'd have Holding alongside probably Gabriel, keep that Europa League partnership going in there, and bring in Tierney for Zinchenko. Gives Tierney a bit of game time, and Zinchenko again the night off, hopefully, ready and fully fit and focused on Sunday's game. And apart from that, I'll keep everything else. I'll keep Ramsdale in goal because I don't want to attack again, like you said last night. I don't want to be changing too much because momentum is key, form, and you don't want any players to just get too complacent as well. So it's just a few changes, but certain players I'll keep in, like you say, a Ramsdale. Obviously, one of Steve or Gabriel, more likely Gabriel, keep him in alongside Holding because they know each other well for playing last season. The midfield.
This is the interesting one.
I'll give Partey the night off because again he's just come back from a knock from international duty. We don't want to really push the boat and risk him being injured for Sunday. So I wouldn't even have him on the bench on Thursday. Play Sambi and Saka, and just go with that.
Yes, there's an option to play because Xhaka is almost certainly going to be playing because he's almost like Haaland. He's like a cyborg, isn't he? Really, he never gets injured. He plays 90 minutes for club and country every single game that he gets an opportunity to play. But there's an opportunity here because Zinchenko hasn't played a lot of football recently. He didn't play during the international break. Obviously, I know he was recovering from a knock, but it wasn't like a major serious knock. He's back now. He played most of the game against Tottenham. There's an opportunity potentially. I don't think he'll do it, but he could take the role that Xhaka's playing and have Tierney behind him, which would mean Xhaka can actually get a rest on Thursday. I doubt whether that'll happen, but I mean, that's an option, isn't it, Ray?
Yeah, I do hear that. I mean, if I was Mikel Arteta, I would probably say to Xhaka, we'll give you an hour. Hopefully the game would be out of sight by then, but if not, we'll leave you on for an hour. I never really thought of that. We could bring on Zinchenko to play that role. I just think we need to manage Kieran Tierney as well. So if he is playing left back, then I'd be more inclined to bring Tierney on. Zinchenko on for Tierney. But going back to what Ryan was saying about Gabriel at the back, I think it's a perfect game. Even if we had Cedric fully fit, I'd still play Tomiyasu at right back and Gabriel centre back against more favourable opposition to get a bit more confident, to try and iron out some of these mistakes he's been making, and hopefully he can take that into the next game and moving forward. I also think I'd probably, and this is a risk, but I think I'd also probably play Martinelli on the left wing or right wing. But then again, sort of say to him a bit like Xhaka, we're going to give you 45 minutes to an hour, and then you're coming off. Yeah,
I'd probably be inclined to do that as well, and maybe he could be replaced by
Reece Nelson.
Reece Nelson, thank you.
Yeah,
exactly, because Reece Nelson is quite widely tipped. I think I saw Charles Watts maybe saying that he's probably likely to start, but I would, because let's not forget we've got 5 subs now, obviously as well. I think we could play relatively strong first half, try and get the game won first half. If not, maybe 60-minute mark, and then you can take off all the main players if we've got a good enough scoreline.
That's why I'd start Martinelli, for example, because I do feel like he could really go at that Bodo Glimt defence and be a real plus for us. So, like I say, I would start him. Hopefully the game is going our way. Hopefully they're out of sight by sort of 50, 60 minutes. Then we can start moving on to the Liverpool game and thinking about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough one, really, because, with regards to playing players like Xhaka, because we always say, and I touch wood here, definitely, because about the injury situation, he never gets injured, but it'll be sod's law. He'll get a knock. Maybe if it only rules him out for one game, but he's ruled out for the Liverpool game, and we cannot afford that. I mean, none of us would ever have dreamed would be saying this. Obviously, it's a couple of years ago, but he is probably one of our most important players at the moment. Now, Granit Xhaka.
Well, I would say that Mikel could play a kid from the reserves, but if he does that, he'll probably get moaned at on TalkSport, won't he? So exactly. I'm not sure if he's allowed to do it or not. Yeah.
Disrespectful playing a 15-year-old. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting to see whether he'll make the bench, isn't it? On Thursday.
It's an option.
Ethan, because say we're 3 or 4-0 up. God, hopefully that'll be the case. 60 minutes gone, and he brings off Granit Xhaka and puts him on give him another half an hour. That'd be really exciting to see. This is the great thing about the Europa League. It's got its many detractors. No one wants to be in it. Everyone wants to be in the Champions League. But when you're in the Champions League, like Tottenham, I believe I'm right in saying, started the same team that they put out against the North London derby tonight. You don't get the opportunity to play and properly rotate in the group stages as you do in the Europa League. And I do enjoy seeing the fringe players, the bench players and the young players coming through and playing a lot of the games in the Europa League. I do always enjoy that. And that's the one good thing about it.
I always see this argument with Europa League saying, it's Thursday, Sunday, can your team cope in Europe? But depending on the opposition and if you manage it well, I always feel like you can almost have 2 different teams, especially a big club like Arsenal that have the squad to do it. So in theory, we should still be able to rest our first team for the majority of it. I think it's maybe the PSV game. PSV. I think that's the only one that I'd probably go really strong in. But then other than that, I feel like we could navigate in the other 2 games.
Yeah, definitely. And it's almost easier because there's not much difference. I mean, sometimes you play Tuesday, obviously Saturday in the Champions League.
Yeah.
But it could be Wednesday, Saturday. Not much difference between that and Thursday, Sunday, obviously. Same amount of days between them, funnily enough. But, like you said, you do have the chance to rest more players when you're in the Europa League than you do in the Champions League. So it's going to be a lot tougher next year when we're in the Champions League. Quite comfortably say that. Than it is this season. So, and also we've got a very, very good, genuine chance of winning the competition, which I desperately want us to do.
Yeah, I'd love us to. I'd absolutely love us to win Europa League this season.
Me too. Yeah, 100%. I mean, imagine it. Whatever we do in the league, first, second, third, whatever, be incredible, be a great season. But to top that off with the European trophy, outstanding. And imagine the way that we were ridiculed at the end of last season by all the Spurs fans saying, "Oh, we collapsed. We're in the Champions League. You're in the Europa League." But we go and then have an incredible season in the Premier League and win the competition we were in.
Yeah, and it's only 4 places, isn't it? It's only 4 places for the English teams. So if we could do both, in theory, we would knock one of our rivals out of the Champions League spot by doing so. By taking one of the top 4 as well as winning it. So yeah, it would just be so sweet in order to do it that way.
It'd be amazing, and we all know who that team we want to knock out of the Champions League. We all know who we want that to be as well. But yeah, it'd be outstanding. I think we're going to sort of leave it there. We've done about an hour and a half, or longer than we anticipated. We had a great conversation. We can leave the Liverpool chat until next Tuesday. Been a really real joy to talk to you all this evening. I've really, really enjoyed it. I hope you all have. Thank you to everyone in the chat. It's been fantastic. I've been putting all the comments up there by you all. Some really, real good stuff. So thanks for that. Give us a like, please, before you leave. I'd be really grateful of that. Don't ask for that very often, but it does obviously help. Subscribe if you haven't done so already as well. And yeah, once again, guys, thanks ever so much, Ray, for coming on tonight. Hopefully we'll see you again very, very soon.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. And, big up to the rest of the panel. Big up the chat box. I see you putting your comments in there. So, thank you for keeping us company.
Fantastic. And once again, Kunjan, thank you very much for joining us, my friend.
Thank you, buddy. And I just wanted to tell you something that you'd been actually MIA for quite a few weeks. I actually have this message from someone here in Kenya who follows your podcast. He runs a sports shop, and it's called Rollis. And he's sent this message over here that says, "Please tell Mr. Andrew we miss him in Kenya and would want more of him." That's from Rollis. He's really.
Thank you very much.
He's a big fan, and he was quite disappointed not to have you on for a week. So I hope for Rollis' sake, not for our sake or anyone else's sake, just for Rollis' case, I hope you do this every week, and maybe twice a week or thrice a week, daily, because you're doing it for him, not for anybody else, just for him.
Fantastic. Big up, Rollis. Fantastic. And if you want to sponsor the show, DM me.
Yeah, please. I'll take 50%.
Yeah, agency fee. Yeah, definitely. I'll do it. And Ryan, thank you very much, mate. It's been great to see you again. And obviously, until the next time, brother.
Yeah. No, thanks again for having me on. And again, big shout out to everyone in the chat, and Ray and Kunjan and yourself. Enjoyed this, and again, great weekend for you, because obviously your birthday. So happy birthday as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Wish you happy birthday. But that must have been the perfect weekend for you. Birthday, day late in North London derby, they win, and now you're back on the doing the podcast again. Yeah,
exactly. Been a great weekend, one that I won't forget for a very long time. Definitely. So yeah, thanks all again once again, and like, subscribe. Same with Ryan's channel, obviously, as well. We all know that. Make sure you subscribe to that, and we'll have a chat about the ongoing Sunday shows that we've been doing. Ryan and I, the Q&A show. We'll get that back up and running as well as soon as possible. But until then, guys, take care and up the Arsenal.
Come on, you Gunners.
Come on, you Gunners, indeed.